Hi, I'm Travis. This is the Bulletin, and here with us today we have Phil Bowdle. Phil, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Bulletin. We are glad that you are here with us. So just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going into the deeper questions, right? So, how many kids? Do you have kids?
I have kids.
How many kids?
I have a 5-year-old boy, Ethan, a almost 1-year-old girl, Ava Joy, and been married for like 11 years.
11 years.
Beautiful wife, Sarah. Yeah.
Come on, that's awesome.
No doubt.
And we're at Westridge Church, where you are the creative arts pastor here. Mm-hmm. And so, how long have you been at Westridge?
I've been here almost 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, so I've been here, started off with the first about four years or so as communications director. Got my start here with that, building that team and over communications and video, and then just, and I think it was Easter of 2014, took over as creative arts pastor and stuff. So really, largely what I try to do is just make sure everything we're creating, everything from our worship services, our worship, our production, video and communications, I just try to make sure we're putting Jesus on display through everything we do, and we're trying to tell one cohesive story through all that stuff. So awesome team that I get to serve with, and at an incredible church. I feel really blessed.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah. And so Westridge, it's in can I say the Atlanta area?
Yeah, Northwest Atlanta is what we call it.
Dallas, Georgia?
Dallas, Georgia.
Not confusing at all?
Yeah, we call it Little D.
Little
Dallas.
Dallas,
Texas.
Little Dallas,
yeah,
cool.
No doubt.
Awesome, man. And so you're not from the Georgia area.
Yeah.
You're from Midwest Cincinnati?
Cincinnati,
is that right?
Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've only known you for a little bit, but I can already tell you with some certainty, you're the best thing I know to come out of Cincinnati. Sorry, it's going to be that kind of...
Let's live up to there, yeah.
That kind of throwdown for Cincinnati.
What's your team?
So I'm from the real Queen City. I'm from Charlotte.
Okay.
And so we have the Panthers, which, like currently it's not that great, but we're building towards the future.
Yeah, see, I'm a long-suffering but loyal Bengals fan and Reds fan, and the best is yet to come. I've stuck with them this long.
Sure.
Let's go with it. Yeah, bring it on.
Just keep on rolling.
And we also are the home of Skyline Chili and Grater's Ice Cream. There's some good stuff there.
Okay.
So yeah, I would not be in the top 10 of the best things from Cincinnati. I'm glad I make your list.
You make my list.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's a very subjective list, but you make my list. All right, so you're talking a little bit about you are the creative arts pastor here, but a lot of people who are watching this might know you from the book that you published. So talk us a little bit about your book, Rethink Communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it started the journey of writing a book, and it happened really, really fast. Largely the reason I wanted to write it was I was talking to a lot of pastors, a lot of communication and creative leaders, and a lot of ministry leaders, just youth pastors, kids pastors, things like that were all having the same conversation. They're all saying a lot's changed in the church. The things that we were doing before are no longer working, and what do we do about it? Because it's changing really fast. And I know just from my area of study and application, communication is at the root of so much of what's changed in the church. And what burdens me is I see a lot of churches using a playbook that used to work like 20, 30 years ago, but no longer works for ministry or for communicating your message anymore. So I believe the church doesn't have a message problem. We have the greatest message ever. We just have a message delivery problem.
Yeah.
So for the churches, regardless of your role, everybody has a role to play in how you communicate that message. And if you're passionate about that message, we better be passionate about how we communicate it.
Sure.
So Rethink Communication was really just about getting everybody at the table that plays a role and saying, hey, here's what's changed. Here's the new reality for the people you're trying to reach. And here's what you can do about it. So just try to give a really practical playbook for some things we've learned, some things that will help other churches help communicate their message more effectively to reach more people.
Yeah, I know. So I bought the book. I read one chapter of it, and I bought 4 more of the books so I could give it to the rest of the team that I was working with. It was really good. It was respectful, but it was challenging.
Yeah.
Right. It was very direct to the fact that we do have a communication problem inside of the church, and so one of the things that if you could use this opportunity to tell churches just one thing about communication, and probably some of the problems that they're dealing with, what would it be?
Oh, one thing, goodness.
You have to communicate this one thing effectively. So, no.
I would say largely it's not about you. I think most of the time for churches, we think as insiders. We think about this matters, this message matters because it's important to me, so it should be important to them. It matters to God, so it should matter to them. And when we make those assumptions, we make assumptions that actually become barriers for our audience. So when we become advocates for our audience, instead of just assuming that what's important to us is important to them, we start removing barriers. We start clarifying our message. We start doing things that make sure we're actually communicating effectively.
Sure.
So I think that's the key, is really advocating for your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Really good. So talk to me about, so you do oversee worship, production, pretty much everything inside the creative realm, the communication, obviously. You guys call it executive team here? Is that
our leadership team?
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're a lead team member as well. So from a leadership perspective, that is a pretty vast, pretty wide range of people that you are working with, you're personally communicating with, personally leading.
No doubt.
Talk to me through some of the challenges that you deal with, that maybe some of the people who are watching this maybe find themselves in the same spot that you do. But like, what are the ways that you navigate the communication struggle?
Yeah. Navigating is interesting. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we all have the same mission. Like, we all want the same things.
Sure.
I think everybody's coming from a different lane and has a different weight on their shoulders. For our senior pastor, for everybody in their own area, we have to, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the passion they have for their own area. But what's unique about creative is everything kind of ends up funneling through it. So you're driving what's happening on the stage, you're driving what's happening on social media, a lot of things. So it can create some tension, for sure. And I think what I try to do in my role as best I can is make sure we know our why as a church and for our team, and filter everything through that. But largely what I try to do is make sure that we're clarifying from a senior leadership team level. We understand who our target audience is, what's our win, what's the problem we're trying to solve, what are the barriers for our audience that we're trying to overcome. And I don't try to get too creative in that room. I try to get clarifying in that room. And because I know our creative team does our best work when we have a compelling problem to solve.
Sure.
When we have something that they said, hey, here's the issue, here's what they're putting in front of us, let's get creative, let's talk about some ways that we can solve that problem. So from a senior leadership team standpoint, that's what I'm trying to draw from our senior pastor, or clarify from him and lead up in that way, and capture that vision and bring it back to our creative team and make sure that I'm setting them up for success with clarity. And make sure that they have a compelling problem to solve and know the boundaries for solving that in a creative way. So it's a blessing, especially, I mean, we fight a lot for healthiness.
Sure.
We fight a lot for just having the tough conversations, leaning into the last 10% or the last 1% sometimes.
Right.
And making sure we know we're all on the same team. We're going to come from different angles on that. So that's kind of the big picture of how I try to navigate the messy middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you personally, what would you say? So one side of it, on the lead team, you're trying to achieve clarity.
Yeah.
And one side on the creative, you're trying to bring some creative solutions to the problems that you've clearly laid out.
Yeah.
What would you say maybe your favorite leaning? What's your personal leaning do you prefer to fight for the clarity and to be inside of that room, or is it your natural bent to be inside the other room?
I think where I naturally find myself is I'm trying to see the big picture in whatever we're doing. Our team empowers me with a lot of, ability to be able to say, hey, you see the big picture of how each of the Sundays are going to fit together, from how we're leading communications. So for me, a lot of the weight that I put on my shoulder is just, what's the big picture of the season of the year that we're communicating in, the messages that we're communicating. So I need to be able to lean in to say, hey, we're doing too much here.
Sure.
What we want to communicate will not be communicated if we keep on adding more here. Or it's saying, hey, here's the mission, here's the thing that we're trying to accomplish. Here's how we're going to have to accomplish that from a Sunday standpoint, from social, from video, all those things. So any chance that I get to help see the big picture and be a bridge between senior and creative is great, because I think that it fits into my my gifting,
Yeah.
but I think also my passion is that I want it all to tell one story and point to Jesus.
Yeah.
So it's not about anybody winning or anything like that. It's about accomplishing our mission. Yeah.
That's good. Well, I've been talking about some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Bring some lightness to the room. Bring some light to it.
Bring it on.
So, question for you: What is the last show that you binge watched?
Last show I binge watched.
Yeah.
I almost always have The Office, Friends, or Seinfeld on. That's kind of my measure of, is it worth not watching reruns of that? Those are my go-tos. It's what I fall asleep to every night. Probably the last show I binge watched, I did a rewatch binge of Breaking Bad, my all-time favorite. And Dark, there's a show called Dark. It's a German show on Netflix. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Really good.
Like subtitles and everything?
Subtitles and everything. It's kind of like a Stranger Things for adults. In a way, like really good.
What does that mean?
It's the same thematic theme, not like from a dirty standpoint. It's just like Stranger Things has a bunch of kids. Dark is a little bit same idea.
Sure,
and stuff, but
just a bunch of German people running around fighting monsters upside down.
Something like that.
Yeah, they get it.
Check it out. Watch the trailer. It
Sure.
won't let you down. It's good.
All right. Cool. Well, so another question that we want to know, that the people have demanded to know, they need to know.
Of course.
What is a song that you're probably most embarrassed about that's in your iTunes library?
Oh, gosh. This is recording, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
People would probably people would make fun of me for the range of music I'll listen to, because I've been known to drive around the parkway in our church rocking out to like Hillsong, of course, Passion, the Elevation, the worship thing. That's my job.
Yeah.
But I've also been known to drive around blasting Jay-Z or Eminem or other stuff like that.
Do you have like some of that inside of you?
No, not at all. But I like listening to it.
Are you sure? Like you don't know any of the lyrics of 8 Mile?
No, of course
off
not.
the top of your head?
You
couldn't perform right now? Bro, you're doing this right now.
It's not happening.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
What if I said that we could potentially edit it out if it did happen?
I still would not be able to deliver on that. No, it's the vibe. I like listening to it. So yeah, I've got worship, I've got rap, I've got classical, anything but country.
All right.
But at the end of the day, if I had to go back to my roots, it's old school DC talk, Free at Last. It doesn't get any better than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bold choice.
Going for it.
Going for it.
Yeah.
Do the people, the fine people of Westridge know that you're hating on the music of their land? This is Georgia.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can sleep very well at night knowing that that's not my thing.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
We read on your website that you were a pastor's kid, and you went on to say you did not want to be a pastor because of your upbringing or whatever the situation was. But now here you are, you're a pastor with your own kids, which is kind of ironic, funny. But talk us through what changed.
Yeah.
Why are you in ministry today?
I mean, I grew up in the church. I've never had a bad experience with the church. Sure. I just never saw myself working in the church.
Yeah.
I didn't see the church as a super creative place. And so for me, I wanted to be in music. I wanted to create, meaningful art and film and all those things. And that's just not really what I saw in the church. So I thought it doesn't have a place for me if I wanted to use my gifts in the church. And really through a number of different experiences, I think God just kept on putting different little experiences in my life where it was like, hey, you can actually use what I created you for in the church. And not only that, I think he put a calling on my life to also create a space where I don't want other young creatives to look at the church and say, there's not a place for me there.
Sure.
I want them looking and saying, I love social media, and I want to say, hey, there's a place for you. I love creating film, like, hey, there's a place for you here. And so that's part of a lot of what I want to do is I want to be creating an environment for those people that were me, years ago. And so that's part of the unique humor that God has of putting me into this, but it's also, I can't imagine doing anything else with my life. Not what I expected, but exactly where I want to be.
That's awesome. So one thing that, you said you've been here for 10 years and ministry before that as well. So how many years total in ministry? I mean,
honestly, I've been in ministry since I was 15.
Wow.
Yeah, I was leading worship back in high school ministry, then worked all the way through college at a student ministry, and then was at a church in Alabama, and then I've been here for 10 years. So really, I mean, over half my life has been in working hands-on in the church. Yeah.
So you've got half your life of ministry experiences. I'm sure there's something inside of that time where you experienced something that just maybe was you were thinking, is this for me? Is this really what I want to keep on doing with my life? And I think a lot of the people who are going to be watching this, or who are watching this right now, could find themselves in that season, even where they are sitting on the other side of the screen. So what is it for you that kind of keeps you in the game when you're at that point where you're getting in your car and you're like, I don't want to come back tomorrow? Which we all have.
I've never had that moment.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Like just correction.
Every Monday.
No ministry person has ever had that experience ever. So, yeah, when you're not having those experiences or those days, in all seriousness, what is it that brings you back? What is it that keeps you going?
I mean, I think every pastor, every ministry leader I've ever talked to has those moments where it's like, this would be easier to do something else.
Right.
Especially Monday, after you've poured out all you got and you're like, okay, was it worth it? And I just think what keeps me going is I know whatever I create, whatever our team creates, whatever our church does is not in our own power, is not worthy of the spotlight. Nothing that we create is going to be going to change somebody's lives. But I think I just have the solemn belief that if we creatively, as a church, as a team, can put Jesus on display and put him in the spotlight through everything we do, crazy God stories can happen. Yeah. And so every week, every time we create an experience, every time we do a social media post, I think it's the excitement of knowing God could use this. Like, he could use that volunteer that shot that picture to help tell that story and change somebody's lives and their eternity.
That's good.
And so that's worth getting up for. Like, that's worth, no matter how hard it is, to say, I'm going to fight for that. I want to see, it's not going to be me that's going to change somebody's life, but if we can put Jesus on display, he can still change lives. So it doesn't make it easy, but I don't think anything that is easy is super worth doing.
Sure.
That's what we fight for here is knowing it's going to be hard, but it matters.
Yeah.
And that's worth getting up for.
Are you personally on TikTok?
I am not personally on TikTok. Correction.
Do you have a TikTok?
I have a TikTok.
Do you just are you on the For You page just to scroll?
Yes, and that's where I deleted it for a season, where I'm like, this is not going to be good for me.
It's too many, some of it's hilarious.
I don't dance, so there's a lot of people dancing, but there's some really creative, fun. It is good for inspiration, but it's also can take over your life. So
yeah. I didn't know if you've seen any of the World War III memes that they've been throwing out. Yeah. No. So you should get on TikTok, look up the World War III stuff. It's a little hashtag socially relevant.
Okay.
With all the stuff going on with Iran.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So
I will check it out.
Yeah, it's good. So speaking of TikTok, I heard you talking one time at a conference, and you're talking about, man, we just got to be up on all these trends and be like, man, communication's always changing. And some lady's like, what about TikTok? And you're like, let's talk about TikTok. So let's talk about TikTok.
Let's talk about it.
What are your thoughts on TikTok?
Personally or for the church?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think I struggle. There's one side of it of saying, if that's where people are, that's where the church should be.
Sure.
And we need to know about it. We need to be able to say, run it through the filter of a digital mission field. I believe that it used to be the greatest ways that we could reach people were inside the walls of the church. And now I believe it's the greatest ways we can reach people are outside the walls of the church. And that means reaching people on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all those things. So on that side, I'd say it is ripe for mission. It's ripe for opportunity and to put light in some darkness.
Sure.
On the other side, and where I would be right now is, I want to make sure as a leader that I'm putting a healthy and sustainable pace in front of my team. And I want to make sure I'm putting a healthy and sustainable mission in front of my team. So for my own context, we've said not yet, because I want to make sure that we're killing it in the other things that are in front of us, and that we're being good stewards of that.
So your no is more of a bandwidth.
It's bandwidth
not
and health.
Yet because of the bandwidth thing.
And I think there is a level too of it kind of with Snapchat as well. There's a lot of things that if you're there, for a lot of audiences, it assumes hey, if my church is there, surely it's okay for my kids to be there. And I think that's a weight that we have to hold as church leaders too.
You gonna put your kids on TikTok?
Yeah, not right now. My 5-year-old will not be on TikTok. Neither will my 10-month-old right now. Yeah, but yeah. So it's usually gray. It's not black and white.
Sure.
And I think that every church, every unique context has its own situation. I see far more. The easiest thing to say would be, you should be on TikTok because other people are. You should do it. The hard thing is to say, you got to be healthy in your leadership. And if you aren't healthy, you're not going to lead a healthy team. If you don't lead a healthy team, or you don't lead yourself in a healthy way, you're not going to produce healthy ministry.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we are right now. Yeah.
That's really good. I think there's something to be said about understanding, especially for those who are watching who are not just creatives, but they're creative leaders.
Yeah.
They're leading other creative leaders. And you just hit on something that we didn't have scheduled to ask or anything, but it's super important to talk about, and it shows kind of your heart in all of this, which is...
The first 2 years of ministry for me, I ran a lot of effective projects. I did a lot of great creative work. But I wasn't leading a healthy creative ministry because I wasn't myself healthy and creative, or healthy and sustainable in that way. And so it hit me in that moment. I'm like, God, how can you ever expect me to build a healthy and sustainable team if I'm not leading myself in a healthy and sustainable way? And so I think that's just critical for church leaders. There's a ton of stories of leaders out there that go to a church, burn themselves out for a year and a half, and never see the church again.
Yeah.
Because they know, they're going to take advantage of me. They're going to suck all the life out of me for the sake of the kingdom. And I just believe as leaders, we have the stewardship and responsibility to lead healthy and sustainable teams. And sometimes that means saying no to things that could be good, but may be a later
which is so tough.
It really is.
Who wants to say no to something that's awesome? And because you, especially when you get pumped up about it, you're excited, you see all the potential for it. Yeah. And I'm sure that there are times that if your team members are as great as what you said, I'm sure they're bringing you stuff constantly that even there are times that you have to push the brakes for them.
Yeah, right. Upstairs today, we have our kids ministry team who's building a hovercraft from a sheet of plywood for their YouTube channel to make something that I'm sure will be brilliant.
That's amazing.
And that was a thing that we said no to for a while because we couldn't support it in a sustainable way, but we're looking to be able to do that. And now they're in season 2, and that's been one of the keys to reaching some of the kids in our community. So sometimes a no isn't a never, it's just a not yet, to make sure that you can be healthy with what God's given you so that he can prepare you for what's next. So it's tough.
That's good, man. One more thing on this, and then we'll kind of move on to some other stuff. But I know, especially when it comes to making sure that your stamp of that there is a stamp of excellence for Westridge, for all ministries, for all areas of communication, because you're not just running things for the weekend.
Yep.
I'm assuming that most of these ministries are funneling through communication to make sure that whatever is going out, that it's got the approval of Westridge branding.
Yep.
So talk about, I'm sure you've been in this situation where someone has been very similar to this kid situation you were just describing, where people are just like, they're super pumped up about something, and you are like the worst person in the world for saying no, right? Like, how do you navigate that with other ministry leaders? Because I know that it's also, people can easily start to move around you if they see you as a roadblock.
Yep.
If you're not positioned as something of being in a place of help, or positioning yourself to help.
For sure.
So how do you navigate that?
It's not easy. I think, one, we try to navigate it through relationships.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't try to be guard dogs through everything we do. We try to be guardrails in what we're doing, with our brand standards, with who we're trying to reach, with what we represent. So we try to do that through relationships. And we try to, overall, we try to do that as partners, not marketers. We're not a marketing agency where it's just a matter of, hey, we got the project done, we're good. We want to partner with that ministry or that leader or that pastor or whatever to say, hey, what's your mission? What's the problem you're trying to solve? What's the win here? And we want to creatively help solve that problem and partner with them on that. And sometimes that means that where there's disagreement is sometimes on the taste of what somebody likes or doesn't like.
Sure.
But usually, if that's the filter, nobody's going to win. The filter needs to be, did this accomplish your mission? So that's helped us navigate some of those tensions. On the other side, on the extreme side, sometimes somebody writes a handwritten a sign, and places it on a door or something like that, and we just have to rip the sign down and say, hey, you don't report to us, but you're accountable to us for how we communicate as a church. And this isn't meaning, this isn't one of the standards that we have for excellence here. So we try to do that with grace and love, and we are softer on it than we, even should be sometimes, maybe for the sake of relationships. But it's important to us that we're advocating for the person we're trying to reach. Yeah. And sometimes that means upsetting a staff member to make sure that we're advocating for the person that may be there for the first time, and trying to clarify and communicate with them effectively. So it's tough. It's really tough, but it's really important work. And the relationship building part is some of the most important work that we do, because we want to make sure that our ministries know we have your back, not because we want it to look cool. We have your back because we want your ministry to be effective, and we want to celebrate with you when you have a win, and we want to have your back when you have something that you are dealing with that you need our help with, and we want to creatively help solve those problems with them.
Obviously, communication's a big thing for you. If you haven't realized this yet, Phil is really about communication, so he digs it so much so he wrote a book about it. But if there was something that communication can be unique to each church, right? There could be some things that maybe work here at a Westridge that don't work at another church. Sure. But what are some things that you would say they're not subjective to where you're at, but they are kind of they're an objective and they're a big deal? Like, yes, there are some black and white rules. What would you say are, well, first off, I'm assuming, would you say that there are some?
Yes.
Okay. You convinced me. You convinced me just as much as you convinced them. So your hesitation, why?
Every context is so different. It's hard to say uniformly, like, this will work everywhere and this won't work other places uniformly. I mean, I think there's some basic. The reason I wrote the book the way I did was it's not just, hey, do these things, just XYZ, do these things and you'll be successful. What I believe is, I think if we don't reposture how we think about communication rather than just what we do, then we're missing it. Because I see there are tons of great communication leaders out there, tons of great Facebook groups and videos and tools out there that will help you get 10% more likes on Facebook, or get your email rate, read rate open a little bit more. All those things, those are great things, they matter.
Right.
But they'll change tomorrow.
Yeah.
They'll change, Facebook will change something and it will change tomorrow. So I think the principles are how we think about communication. And that means that it's about the person we're trying to reach.
Sure.
It's about being true to the message that we have. And in the church, I think it's true to say, if we aren't making it about Jesus, then we're just missing it.
Right.
Because that's what people need. They need authenticity.
Right.
They need a true look of what Jesus is actually going to do, and what we want for people, not what we want from people.
Sure.
In that way. So I think it's how we think about it that we really need to be diving into, just as much as just, hey, this is something that everybody has to do.
Right. So you're saying, like, methods are going to change.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because culture is constantly changing. Technology is constantly changing. But one thing that isn't changing is that people need to hear about Jesus.
Yeah.
And maybe, there might be a method that works for X amount of time, but the objective is you can't be stuck on one thing.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus took a message, and he gave the method. Then was he's going to gather a bunch of people. He might put them right by the water so he can project and speak well to those people. He's going to share stories.
Right.
And stories work then, they work now.
Yeah.
But now your story may not get heard unless you're helping leverage that on YouTube or using that on Facebook, or you're taking those methods, but you're taking the what makes story work, and then you're taking those principles and using that in a lot of different applications. So there are a lot of those things that work regardless, but how they look is going to look different now than it used to, for sure.
So you're saying if Jesus were to come back tomorrow,
I think he'd be on YouTube.
He's going to be on
TikTok.
YouTube? Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Bro, you want to recant your statements about TikTok?
Maybe.
Jesus is on there, but your 5-year-old can't be? What is up with that? Talking about methods of communication, so something that's a little different is maybe we utilize church signs a little bit differently nowadays than what we used to. So what's the funniest church sign you've ever seen?
Well, first, I just want to make a public statement that I do make fun of any sign that is in papyrus font. like bottom line, if there's a church sign, I'm gonna
It's your
make
duty.
fun of it. It's my duty. It's my privilege.
Right.
I actually, my wife
You
and
check your privilege at the door, sir.
Me and my wife had a little bit of a moment the other day going to the new pediatrician, and I looked over and she said, "Oh no,
It's because the font.
their font was papyrus." And I said, like, this is.
How could they take care of your children?
How can I trust my wife if she would pick a place? You know. Anyway, no. Just kidding.
You didn't go for the doctor. You went for your wife, bro. We'll cut that out.
We had some words. We had some words. Yeah.
We'll cut that out.
Yeah.
We got to get that out.
But yeah, so any church that is using papyrus, I will make fun of. But other day I saw bless their hearts, that had a probably meaningful graphic that said, "Faith as small as a mustard seed," and it had, I don't know what it was, but it had a little mustard seed. But I think it was thumbprint, like it had it holding in thumbs, and it looked like a butt in the picture. So it was a bless their heart moment for sure. Yeah, but churches are great at creating some interesting.
So this is a tip for all those who are inside of communication. Typically, you want to stay away from signage or any sort of communication that resembles a butt of some sort.
I would agree with this.
Yeah. So new rule that we're going to lay out in the no butts, no booty. This ain't the place.
And no papyrus.
No papyrus. Yeah, we're just going to make sure that whenever we throw these on social, that all of the little things that are going underneath are going to be in papyrus. So you're talking papyrus,
I will
right?
report it
now.
as a violation.